Hello YouTube, what is up? My name is Luke, and today I am bringing you a Decidueye Ninetales deck list for the 2017-2018 Standard format. Now, many of you already know that Decidueye GX was fairly popular in the 2016-2017 Standard format with its partner Vileplume, which locked items for both you and your opponent. These Pokemon had their evolution lines accelerated by Forest of Giant Plants, which allowed Pokemon to be evolved on the turn they came into play, instead of waiting the customary one turn to evolve. We have lost Forest of Giant Plants and Vileplume for the standard format of this season. And Decidueye seems to have taken a hit by that, but I feel like Decidueye can use Rare Candy and Manual Evolution just like every other Stage 2 deck, and still work wonders in the matchups that it previously was favored in. I've been working on this list for 1 to 2 weeks, and I may be taking it to a League Cup this weekend. It has a really good matchup against a couple of the top decks, some 50-50s. It does, however, have unfavored matchups versus fire decks because the Decidueye is weak to fire, and they get an easy 2 prizes off of that. It does have some other bad matchups, some 50-50s, like I said. But the important ones, I think, are Gardevoir and Metagross, which it has fairly good matchups against because you can devolve their Stage 2 Pokemon, get some easy KOs, disrupt them, set them back because they were candied. I'll talk about matchups a little more after we go through the list, but without further ado, this is my Decidueye Ninetales list for the 2017-2018 standard format. We'll start off with Espeon EX with the Miraculous Shine attack for 1 energy. Miraculous Shine devolves each of your opponent's evolved Pokemon and put the highest stage evolution card on it into your opponent's hand. Now, this is devastating by itself. If your opponent rare candied stage 2 Pokemon like Metagross, like Gardevoir, like Vikavolt onto their basic forms, those cards are now in your opponent's hand, and they have to either rare candy again on their following turn, or they have to play down a stage 1, wait a turn, and then play down a stage 2, which sets them back. It's very disrupting. But the best thing is you are spreading damage with this deck, hopefully from the first or second turn, with Flying Flip from Tapu Koko, Ice Blade from Ninetales GX, and Feather Arrow ability from Decidueye GX. So you're spreading damage on all these Pokemon, basic, stage 1, stage 2, and then when you go to devolve the evolved Pokemon, their lower forms have less HP, and you can take knockouts off of that while disrupting your opponent. So Espeon X is such a great card, one of my favorites. I think it's going to see a lot of play in the current format because there's so many evolution decks going around. Next we have 4 Rowlett. Pretty basic card. We need this to make Decidueye. It turns into Dartrix, and then Dartrix turns into Decidueye. So we need this. The 1 retreat cost is really nice, though. So that's something notable on the card. Dartrix, we also have 1 retreat cost, but this one also has an attack that can sometimes be useful. Sharp Blade Quill for 1 colorless energy. This attack does 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So if you're having a slow start, if Dartrix is your only attacker, you don't have an Alolan Vulpix yet, maybe late game, you need an extra 20 damage for that last prize card, Sharp Blade Quill can sometimes be used. I've used it only a handful of times since Decidueye started being played back when it came out, but it has been used, and it's an attack that's good to know you have. This is the big guy himself, Decidueye GX. 240 hit points, grass type, stage 2, 2 retreat costs, which isn't the best, but we do run double colorless energy, so we can get him out of there in a pinch. We also run Floatstone. What we're really looking at here is the Feather Arrow ability. Once during your turn, you may put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. This is just so good. You spread the damage, get some knockouts on small Pokemon, or set up knockouts for later in the game with devolving larger Pokemon with Espeon's Miraculous Shine. Feather Arrow is just one of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion. Right now, it might not be showing as strong as it used to, but I definitely think it could come back into the format. We have a solid attack, Razor Leaf, a grass energy, and 2 double colorless energy. for 90 damage. Not bad. When you have multiple Decidueyes doing Feather Arrow, you can really rack up the damage there. And with a Choice Band, you're doing 120 for 3 energy. Not bad when it's also your Pokemon that's spreading the damage, and you have 240 HP. Now, Hollow Hunt GX. Put 3 cards from your discard pile into your hand. Now, this GX attack isn't killing anything, it's not doing anything to your opponent, but with Versus Seeker just leaving the standard format, I think Hollow Hunt GX is a great GX attack. You can get any 3 cards from your discard pile and put them into your hand. Even if your opponent ends you next turn, they're still back into your deck. Now, we have little retrieval right now in terms of getting supporters back. The only thing that comes to mind right now is Puzzle of Time, and I'm not personally a fan of putting 4 slots, leaving 4 slots on my deck for 4 Puzzles of Time. And Hollow Hunt GX is just amazing. To get back a couple key supporters, maybe some energy, an Alolan Ninetales, an Espeon if you had to discard it earlier in the game because you didn't want to bench it. Hollow Hunt GX is just so great for getting back resources. And I think it's one of the best GX attacks in the standard format right now. Let's look at Tapu Koko promo next. So we got a basic with 110 HP. It's kind of bulky, not bad. Free Retreat, which is super nice. If you start with this, that's just amazing, because then you can bridge it and get any Pokemon to the active that you want. Flying Flip is what we're looking at here. This attack does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So we can start the spread as early as turn 1 if we go second and can attack on our first turn. With a double colorless energy, we're flying flipping and we're spreading damage everywhere. Just really good if you can get that early spread started, so when you get the Decidueyes down, you're really racking up the damage. Next, we play 3 Alolan Vulpix from Sun and Moon Guardians Rising with the free Beacon attack. There's such a great free attack, probably the best free attack we have right now. So Beacon is search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This is great for setting up. You can search for 2 Decidueye if you have 2 rare candies in your hand. Next turn, boom, boom, there we go. We got our Decidueyes down. Or if you're going for a slow route, Dart Trix. If you have a dead hand, search for a Lele and play it next turn. Or if you have a dead hand, you search for a Lele and your opponent ends you, and then you have a new hand. We are less prone to ends after a Beacon now in this new format, just because Versus Seeker is gone, and that means that your opponent can't reuse end turn after turn after turn without drawing into the end. So yeah, Beacon's amazing. And we evolve that into Alolan Ninetales GX. 210 hit points, stage 1, water, so we're hitting fire for weakness with Ice Blade. With a Choice Band, we're hitting the active Pokemon for 80, so if they're a fire Pokemon, we're doing 160, and add a couple of Feather Arrows, and you're knocking out most fire GXs with that. But Ice Blade is really for getting damage onto your opponent's benched Pokemon that we have earlier flying flipped damage onto, or that we're going to later devolve or put Feather Arrow damage on, etc., etc. Alolan Ninetales is just a very versatile GX. In this deck, we probably won't be using its Blizzard Edge attack unless you're in a dire situation, but Ice Path GX is a good backup GX attack if you're not going to use Hollow Hunt GX. If your opponent hits your Ninetales for anything under 210 damage, and you can move all of that, healing your Ninetales GX and putting it onto your opponent's Pokemon, possibly knocking them out, it's a great move. Definitely a very good GX attack. So yeah, Ninetales is amazing in this deck because you can spread the damage with Ice Blade, and it just so happens its basic form, Vulpix, has an amazing setup attack that costs 0 energy. I am trying out teching this one non-GX Alolan Ninetales in the deck. Luminous Barrier prevents all effects of attacks, including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX. Now, this is good because it can form as a wall. If your opponent isn't hitting their Guzma, you just leave this out there, and your opponent has a lot of GX and EX on the board, no non-GX or EX to attack into it. You just leave this active, and you go to town with Feather Arrows on your opponent's Pokemon, rack up some damage on them. Eventually, I'm sure they'll knock it out, but Hex Maniac is not in the format anymore, which makes it harder to get around Luminous Barrier. And we also don't have Versus Seeker, so a discarded Guzma isn't always at your opponent's disposal anymore. So this can act as a wall, and you can even attack with it with a Rainbow Energy and a double Colorless Energy for 80, or 110 with a Choice Band. I think it's really nice to have a wall in this deck because you can just leave it out there. If your opponent can't do anything with it, you just keep Feather Arrowing and pass until you take some knockouts. It could be a really nice tactic against some of your lesser matchups. Next, we have 2 Tapu Lele GX. Sorry, my arts on here aren't matching at the moment. But Tapu Lele GX is just probably the best card in the game. Wonder Tag, when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. This card just gives every deck such amazing consistency. You either hit a supporter, you either hit a Lele, or you hit an Ultra Ball to get the Lele, and you get your Bridget or your N or your Sycamore or whatever it is you need to start the game and get set up. Later in the game, you can get Acerolas and Guzmas and whatnot with it. Yeah, just a great card. And it even has Energy Drive. This attack does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. This damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance. So it has a fairly usable attack. It's used a lot. We have double Colorless in here, so just one quick attachment, and you're off to the races with Energy Drive. 170 HP, no weakness, no resistance, and only 1 retreat cost. Very solid card all around. Next, we're moving to the trainers. We start off with 2 Field Blower. Since Gardevoir decks are still around, we want to have Field Blower to get rid of a Float Stone or any other tool on a Garbotoxin Gardevoir that is stopping our Feather Arrow abilities. So yeah, pretty simple. We just need this to get rid of Float Stones on a Garbotoxin or possibly a Fighting Fury Belt on a basic Pokemon that we're trying to kill. Next up, we have 4 Ultra Ball, pretty standard. Discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Like I said, it can get anything. On the first turn, it's really nice to see an Ultra Ball for a Lele and then get your supporter of choice. I'm playing 2 Rescue Stretcher. These got separated because one's reverse and one's not. But yeah, 2 Rescue Stretcher. I was trying out Revitalizer. 1 Revitalizer and 1 Rescue Stretcher, but the Revitalizer just didn't seem as good anymore because Forest of Giant Plants isn't around, so you can't pick up 2 grass Pokemon and immediately evolve them. So I think Rescue Stretcher is all around better. We are playing 4 Rare Candy. I'm considering I might go down to 3, but I just like the consistency of having the Rare Candy in my hand whenever I also have a Decidueye in hand and a Rowlett on the bench able to evolve. So 4 Rare Candy for now. 4N just to consistently have that draw support. 2 Bridget, so we have a better chance of starting with it, and just in case one is prized, we can still set up if we have the Lele to search for Bridget, and get our 3 basic Pokemon. 4 Professor Sycamore, again, great draw support. 4, so we get it consistently. Skyla, I've been messing around with Skyla in a lot of my post-rotation decks. I think it's really nice, especially in decks that rely on abilities, because you can Skyla for a Field Blower, get rid of your opponent's tool on their Garbotoxin, and continue using your abilities. It can get a Choice Band in a pinch, or set you up for your supporter for your next turn. Guzma. Guzma is an amazing card. I'm only running 2 in this deck, because Decidueye doesn't always need the Pokemon it's killing to be active. Most of the time it's going to be on the bench or being devolved or something like that. So it is a good switching method, and if we want to Razor Leaf something or Ice Blade something in the active to hit it for weakness, then Guzma's our boy. We're playing 2 Choice Band. So 2 Choice Band, a lot of times we're hitting damage on the bench with Ice Blade, with Flying Flip. Excuse me. So we don't always need extra damage, so that's why I'm only running 2. Feather Arrows is an ability, hitting the bench. Ice Blades hitting the bench, not affected by Choice Band. Espeon devolves, not using Choice Band. So yeah, sometimes you're going to want your Razor Leaf to hit 120, sometimes you're going to want your Ice Blade to hit 80, stuff like that, but it's not something you need to see consistently all the time. Next up is 3 Float Stone. This one I've been messing around with. This 3rd Float Stone was... I think the 3rd Float Stone was either a 2nd Cocoa or a 3rd Field Blower, but I found myself needing to retreat more often, and a Float Stone will do that for you. So I'm trying out a 3rd Float Stone. It's just nice if you have a Decidueye that gets stuck up there, or what have you, and you need to retreat it without attaching energy. Lastly, we have our energy lineup. 4 double colorless energy and 4 rainbow energy. I am using the rainbow energy so we can attack with Aurora Beam. 80 damage with the Alolan Ninetales with the Luminous Barrier ability. And since we have it in there for that, if you really need to, you could always use Psy Shock for 70. Maybe hit something for weakness. And if the situation presents itself, you can always try a Tapu Cure GX with that Rainbow Energy. Heal all damage from 2 of your benched Pokemon. So the Rainbow Energy lets us do a couple neat things with this deck. And then the 4 double colorless energy, since we can use Flying Flip, Ice Blade, Razor Leaf with an additional energy, Energy Drive. Yeah, so double colorless is just a necessity for this deck. So that is my Decidueye Ninetales deck list for the 2017-2018 standard format. A couple of matchups that I feel are important for this deck are Gardevoir. Let's start with that. Gardevoir is a Stage 2 Pokemon. It's arguably the best deck in format right now. It's very, very strong. It doesn't have too many bad matchups. Decidueye can really run through a Gardevoir deck by spreading damage and then Miraculous Shining the Gardevoirs and the Octilleries up to the opponent's hand and killing the Rowletts and Remoraids. Pretty much any Stage 2 deck can suffer from this, but Gardevoir, yeah, in testing, Decidueye has a very positive matchup versus Gardevoir. I'd say it's around 60-40, so it's not an auto win by any means, but it is a very, very tough match for the Gardevoir player. This deck has a favorable matchup versus Metagross, because once again, you just spread your damage. They do have max potions, which can get a little tricky because most Gardevoir decks don't run max potion, but Metagross does, so that's something different there. But if you can time your damage right and just keep the pressure with Feather Arrows and Flying Flips and what have you, you can get a couple knockouts with Miraculous Shine, set your opponent back, and swing the game in your favor by setting their Stage 2s back to their hand. A matchup that I've been having difficulty with is Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu Vikavolt, Vikabulu, whatever we're calling it. Because once you devolve their Vikavolts, if you kill them, just devolve them, both, whatever, they still have their Bulus. So with Metagross and Gardevoir, we're killing their Rowletts or Beldum and devolving their main attackers, which are also their Stage 2. But with Tapu Bulu Vikavolt, they can charge up a Bulu or two, and we get rid of their Vikavolt, but they still have their main attacker. We're not one-shotting Tapu Bulu with this deck. They aren't one-shotting Decidueye most of the time either, unless they get a couple good Flying Flips in the beginning. But they can hit us, we hit them, and then they heal with Tapu Wilderness, 150 or 180 with a Choice Band. The math just doesn't end up working in our favor most of the time. But if Tapu Bulu Vikavolt does not get an amazing start, let's say they don't get their first Bulu attack off until turn 4, we might have a chance with taking out their Vikavolts. I would say it's a 40-60 matchup in Vikabulu's favor at the moment. There are a couple things I'm considering testing to swing the matchup into a 50-50, but we'll see how that goes. I am testing this deck more for the rest of the week leading up to a League Cup this weekend. So one of the matchups I'm testing a lot is Vikabulu and seeing what I can do to make that matchup better, because I do believe that Vikabulu is a very good deck right now. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching this. This was my first YouTube video for this channel. The entire deck list will be in the info below. You can follow me on Twitter and Twitch, which I have right here on the video, Luke_Morsa, and my Twitch is just Luke Morsa. I will try to update this YouTube channel once or twice a week, and I'm going to start streaming on Twitch as well. If you have any decks you want to see me talk about, work a list on that nobody else is putting up on YouTube, just let me know. I figured I'd do this one since nobody else is talking about it as far as I know. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Have a good day.